Today, we're diving into the incredible story of John Law, a man who gambled an entire kingdom's fortune, and for a moment, it looked like he was actually going to win.
I mean, this story is just wild. It's got everything: genius, ambition, and a financial crash that literally shook a whole continent. But the real question is, right, how on earth does a convicted killer, a guy with a death sentence hanging over his head, become the richest man in Europe, only to lose it all? Well, let's get into it.
So this is him. This is John Law, the man at the heart of this whole crazy story. He was born in Scotland, a total math whiz, but also a massive gambler. And by 1720, you could make a pretty good case that he was the most powerful financial guy on the planet. But to really get how he climbed so high, you've got to understand where he started. And it all began with a killing. All right, so let's start with what you might call his first big gamble, a killer's gambit, literally. We're going back to his wild early days in London, where one fatal choice sent him fleeing for his life, and honestly changed everything. You know, John Law was always a guy who lived on the edge. He ditched his family's safe banking business to hit the gambling halls in London. And in 1694, things get serious. He kills a man in a duel, gets caught, and is sentenced to death. But in a move that's just so him, he makes one more massive gamble. He escapes from prison and becomes a fugitive. Now, being on the run didn't mean he was just laying low. No way. He spent his years in exile traveling all over Europe, and he became completely obsessed with studying how money and finance worked. And it's during this time that this radical idea starts to form in his mind. What if the whole concept of money as everyone knew it was just wrong? What if it was time for a revolution? And you know what? He found the perfect laboratory for his wild new theories. France. A country that was, this cultural powerhouse, but also just about to go completely broke. So picture this. It's the early 1700s. Louis XIV is gone, and France is an absolute mess. The government is drowning in debt. The entire economy is grinding to a halt because it's all based on these heavy gold and silver coins, and there just isn't enough to go around. It was a total crisis, and they were desperate for a savior. This is where Law's big idea comes in, something we now call fiat money. He basically said, hey, a country's real wealth isn't a pile of gold sitting in a vault. It's its people, its trade, its businesses. Money, he thought, should just be a tool to get all that stuff moving. A tool the government could create, print and control. So just think about the difference for a second. In one corner, you've got these clunky, heavy coins. There's only so many of them, you can't just make more. But in the other corner, Law is proposing these lightweight paper banknotes. You need more money to get the economy going? Boom, you print more. The magic, the key to the whole thing wasn't the paper. It was the trust people had in the French government that backed it. His whole plan, which everyone started calling the system, was actually pretty straightforward. It was a two-step process. Step 1, start a state bank to issue all this new paper money. Step 2, create a huge state-run company that would make so much money from trade it could literally pay off all of France's debt. Simple, right? And just like that, one of the most incredible speculative bubbles in all of history got started. And what was the engine for this whole dream? A swampy, mostly unknown piece of land way over in North America called Louisiana. So Law sets up the Mississippi Company. It's got a total monopoly on trade with the French colonies. And he starts selling shares to the public, painting this picture of just unimaginable wealth. He's talking about gold, silver, tobacco, all of it just pouring back into Paris from the New World. The hype was real. And the public, they absolutely lost their minds. I'm talking everyone, from the highest duke down to the kitchen servants, was desperately trying to get their hands on these shares. It was a total frenzy. And even back then, some people could see how crazy it was. This cartoon from the time actually calls Law a wind trader, basically saying he's selling nothing but hot air. Get this, the word millionaire didn't even exist before this. It was literally invented in Paris during this time to describe the people who were getting ridiculously rich practically overnight, thanks to John Law's system. By the beginning of 1720, the share price hit a peak of 9,000 livres, just an unbelievable number. The amount of wealth being created, on paper at least, was staggering. The entire country was just drunk on it. And John Law, he was at the absolute peak of his power. Think about it. The fugitive, the convicted killer, was now the finance minister of France. Some said he was even richer and more powerful than the regent who ran the country. He started buying up everything, chateaus, and even almost the entire Place Vendôme, which was, and still is one of the fanciest squares in Paris. But here's the thing about dreams built on hype and promises. They can't last forever. The whole Mississippi Company was running on pure speculation and a constant flood of new paper money. In reality, well, reality was about to hit, and hit hard. So, what was the problem? Well, all that gold and treasure from Louisiana, it just never showed up. It wasn't really there. So a few of the big, powerful investors started getting nervous. They decided to cash in their chips, demanding real gold for their stacks of paper money. And as soon as word got out, the panic started. Suddenly, everyone wanted their gold back. It turned into a full-blown bank run. People lined up for blocks, the lines turned into angry mobs, and then into riots. And just like that, the trust in the paper money, the one thing holding the entire system together, it just vanished. Poof. The bank, of course, had nowhere near enough gold to pay everyone, and they had no choice but to slam the doors shut. The fallout for the real economy was just devastating. As that paper money became worthless, you had insane inflation. Just to put it in perspective, the price of food shot up by 60%. This caused incredible suffering for ordinary people, and they were, understandably, furious. The bubble was popped. By the end of 1720, the whole system had completely collapsed. John Law went from being the savior of France to its most hated man. He was fired, of course, and had to run for his life, fleeing the very country he had tried to reinvent. So that brings us to the end of his story, right? From riches to ruin. The man who was once the wealthiest person in Europe was a fugitive all over again. Only this time, there was no coming back. I mean, the reversal of his fortune was just absolute. One minute, he's owning these gorgeous homes on the Place Vendôme, and the next, he ends up buried in a simple grave in a church in Venice. He lost every penny, went back to his old gambling habits, and died completely broke. So when you look back, what do you make of him? Was he a visionary or just a reckless gambler? His system was a total disaster, no question. But that core idea he had, that money isn't just a hunk of metal but something based on shared trust, well, that's the very foundation of every single modern economy we have today. So yeah, his gamble failed spectacularly, but in a weird way, we're all living in the world that John Law dreamed up.